This class is in memory of Jared Ertrin, and we will today learn about the Bris. We will turn to a page, open the prayer books on page 458. And we will start from the beginning of the whole story of a Bris. Bris is the first mitzvah that God gave to the Jewish people, the first Jew, Abraham, the first mitzvah before any other mitzvah. Many years before any other mitzvah was the Bris given to the Jewish people. Abraham was 99 years old, and he had the mitzvah of Bris. And the first child to be circumcised by the 8 days old was Isaac. Isaac was born, and by the age of 8 days, why God decided to do it by 8 days, not by the day before, not by 7 days, not by 9 days, not by 6 days? If that's a covenant with God, why not to do it as early as possible? Today, what day they do already in the hospital is circumcision? The third day probably. And here, why the Torah said to make the bris by the 8th day?
It's about
8 is a symbolic day.
That comes later. But the simple explanation is because God wanted, it's like when you come to see the king, you need to have a time of preparation, so to speak. That God wanted the baby should be alive for a full week. He should have one Shabbos, passing one Shabbos, and then having the bris. Then here he was born on Friday night, but it has to be a whole Shabbos and then have to bris. That's why in the 8 days you for sure have a Shabbos in between. That's why we have a Shalom Zocher. Shalom Zocher is something that the Friday night before the bris, you make a special celebration in honor of the baby. That he celebrates his first Shabbos in the world. And then you have the bris. That the bris is by 8 days. What he mentioned now is 7 represents the full cycle of nature. 8 represents above nature. The bris is a connection with God, is a covenant with God that's above logic. What means above logic? Ishmael made a bris when he was 13 years old. Isaac made a bris when he was 8 days old. Who is greater, Ishmael or Isaac? What do you think?
Depends on who you ask.
That's why I'm asking you guys.
In some ways, you'd say Ishmael because he
made a
the
decision.
choice.
He made a choice. But any decision, any logical decision, could always be altered, could be changed. Now I came to the conclusion that it was a stupid idea to make a bris. I changed my mind. If it was a logical decision to make a bris, it could be out-logicked by somebody who's smarter and can prove me different things. The connection with the 8-day baby old is an above logic connection. There's a connection, it's a birth, like the relationship between a mother and a child is above logic. There's a bond that doesn't need any explanation. The same thing is the bond between a baby and God. You made the bris, you didn't ask him, and it's not, and he grows up, he might change his mind, doesn't make a difference. He has a connection with God. And that's what really the bris represents, this above logic relationship that a Jew has with God. No matter what, it makes sense, it doesn't make sense, we are circumcised. And interesting enough, this mitzvah that is above logic and doesn't make sense and painful, all the Jews do. It's one of the most practiced mitzvahs in Jewish tradition by all Jews. And not only this, they do it with a celebration. They don't say, oh, yeah, I have to make a bris, what should I do? It's a party, it's excitement, it's joy. Wherever you go, the bris is one of, and people love to run to brises. For some reason, when you say to people there is a bris, they're there like soldiers. I mean, like everybody comes to a bris, no matter what the bris. The bris is a mitzvah, a common denominator that connects all Jewish people. The most secular Jews observe the mitzvah of bris. It's an amazing thing. That you see that the above logic connection the Jewish people have with God goes across the board. Whenever there comes logic, you say, oh, I don't want to do this mitzvah because it doesn't make sense, because mitzvahs that completely don't make sense, everybody is doing them. And that's a bris. That's why the bris is by the 8th day, that number 8 represents above nature. And then we just celebrated Hanukkah, and Hanukkah is a holiday of 8 days. Pesach is 7 days from the Bible, Sukkot is 7 days, Hanukkah is 8 days. Why? Because Hanukkah was a miracle of the oil. Something above logic, something above nature. That's why it's number 8.
And that's also why the Greeks tried to prevent us from doing the bris, no?
The Greeks didn't like us to do a bris. They stopped us from doing a bris because they couldn't stand this connection that we have with God, that above logic connection, that we will do for God whatever it is, even if it doesn't make sense. They couldn't take it. Then that's why the bris is by the 8th day. Now we learn a little bit about the ceremony of the bris. The first thing is it's called a kvater. Kvater means a couple is chosen. They usher the baby to the bris. The woman takes the baby from the mother, and she brings them to the hall, to the room of the bris. She hands them over to her husband, who is then brings them over to where the bris is taking place. That's called kvater. Some people say it comes from the word godfather. That's like he takes responsibility for the baby, but it's just an honorary. You do it if young couples who cannot have children. You give them this mitzvah because this helps them like to get the blessing to have children. When they usher the baby to the bris, the congregation, everybody who's in the room, announce 2 words: Baruch haba. First of all, they have to rise. Everybody stands up for the entrance of the baby. Because he's a baby who is going to do this, baby is going to do such amazing mitzvah. It's such an amazing mitzvah that all angels are envying him. And that's why the night before the bris, there is something it's called, you come to read Kriyat Shema. You know why we say Shema at night, before we go to sleep? What do you think? Why we say
Ask
Shema?
God to wake up in the morning.
The Shema before we go to sleep is for protection. To protect us during the night. Shouldn't have bad dreams, shouldn't have nothing bad should happen to us. That's what the Kriyat Shema is. Then we come and we read Shema for the baby the night before the bris to protect them. And you bring children, Jewish children, and it's during the week it's easier. You bring, I remember as a little child, used to go many times to homes to read by the Besenet, all the kids together said the Shema, and another few prayers, Hamalach HaGoel, and other prayers, and we used to get a lot of goodies and sweets. It was the most amazing thing. And we say, oh, we're going today to this and this house to read the Shema. Everybody used to bring groups of kids. I mean, in Israel, neighborhood, you just go out and scream, we're reading the Shema, we're giving candies. You have 50 kids right there in Bnei Brak. Then, and you read, and there is many adults coming and say the Shema there. And it's a whole evening of celebration. And the custom is that the father of the baby sits with the baby like he's up with him a whole night, reading Zohar and other Torah to protect the baby, so to speak. Because he's going to do such a great mitzvah. There is evil forces who are kind of jealous, who are envying him. Then the night before the bris, the father of the baby stays up all night, kind of. By me, when my father was here, one of my kids, I think that was a Sholem, then my father stayed all night. I told him, you stay up all night, I'm going to sleep. This time I'll ask from, what's his name, from Shimon's father to stay up all night.
You're not volunteering?
I'm not volunteering.
Can you split it? Can you take turns?
Yeah. I was going to get up 2 o'clock in the morning to be with
I
the
don't
baby.
know.
Maybe the father of the baby, and you used to babysit, take care of him.
So the Shalom Zachor has nothing to do with that.
It's 2 separate things.
I know.
If let's say if the Shalom Zohar is always Friday night.
Right.
This is if the bris is on Tuesday, it's Monday night, the night before the bris.
But is it the Shalom Zachor a similar purpose?
I don't think so. It's
To
just
remember-
celebrate.
So-
Shalom Zohar is like welcoming the baby to the Jewish, to the
remember.
world, welcoming him.
What's Zachar?
Zachar means male. Shalom, Zachar. Shalom means welcome. Welcome the male baby. That's what Shalom Zachar. Then here we come to the bris. We all stand up and we say Baruch haba. Blessed is the one who came in. The word haba, if you look in the Hebrew side, A, Bet, Aleph. What's the numerical value of A, Bet, and Aleph? Who knows?
3?
A is what?
4?
The letter Hey.
Oh,
It's
hey,
10.
5.
10.
5.
Oh,
5.
Bet is what?
It's 2.
2. 6.
1.
Aleph
1.
is 1. I mean 7.
8.
And Aleph is 1, is 8. 8 days.
8.
That's why we said, Baruch Haba. The numerical value of Haba is 8. After you bring in the baby, at that time, the Moel says a special prayer. Let's read this prayer and try to make sense of it a little bit.
Blessed be he who entered. Happy is the man you choose and bring near to dwell in your courtyards. We will be satiated with the goodness of your house, your holy temple.
And basically, you bless God for bringing him you bring him closer to you. By this baby making a bris is getting closer to God.
The Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the Cohen, has turned my wrath away from my children of Israel when he displayed anger among them in my behalf, so that I did not wipe out the children of Israel in my anger. Therefore say, I grant him my covenant of peace.
This is a quote from the Bible. There is a story about Pinchas. Who was Pinchas?
He was a Cohen, but he was not
He was the grandson of Aaron. Aaron, his name is Pinchas, the son of Eleazar, the son of Aaron, the high priest. At one point, it was a time that the Jewish people were running around with Midianite women. And God was very upset, and even more upset because they worshipped idols. The Midianite women made them worship idols. And it was a plague among the Jewish people. And Pinchas went, and he stopped this business of worshipping idols. He killed the leader who tried to worship, who showed the way for everybody to worship idol. His name was Zimri. And then the plague stopped. And God tells Moses, Pinchas ben Eleazar, he saved, he changed me, he relaxed me from my wrath, and therefore I give him the covenant of peace. Bris, the covenant of peace. Why we mention Pinchas here? Because next thing we're going to speak about Eliyahu. And Eliyahu is a reincarnation of Pinchas.
Mila is word, a word. Right?
Mila could be word. Mila could also mean coat.
Oh, okay.
Lamul means to cut.
Oh, okay.
The word mal could be there is in the Bible many times in the context of cutting, to cut something. Umod Hashem et levavcha will circumcise your heart. The word is circumcision. The literally for the word circumcision is milah, to cut. And you're right, milah also means word. Yeah.
Words can be very cutting.
Then now, after we brought the baby in, the next thing is the chair for Elijah. What's the chair for Elijah? Elijah the prophet, we know him from Pesach. Everyone, there is a cup of Elijah by the Seder. Why we have a cup of Elijah by the Seder? What do you think? Why we don't have a cup of Moses?
Because Elijah's supposed to announce the Moshiach.
The night of the Seder is the most appropriate night for the redemption to take place, for Moshiach to come, because we were redeemed from Egypt on Pesach, on the first night of Pesach. What could be a better time on the same night to be redeemed again? Who's supposed to tell us, to let us know that Moshiach is coming? That it's written in the prophet that Elijah is going to come and tell us. We say it also in the grace after meal, in the Orachaman. We sing Or Haman after every time when we say the blessing, the benching, the grace after meal. We say we have a special Or Haman for Elijah. We ask from God to send us Elijah. On page 94, if you see, it's in the middle of the page. There is no numbers and no lines, so barely allowed to find it. But there is, may the merciful one send us Elijah, the prophet, may be remembered for good, and let him bring us good tidings. What are the good tidings that we are waiting for? The good tidings are the deliverance and cancellations. The deliverance and cancellations we want when we come to tell us that Moshiach is coming. Elijah is supposed to be the one who will tell us that Moshiach is coming. Then that makes sense why we have a cup for Elijah by the Seder, we want to make a statement. We are waiting for Elijah. We are so sure that Elijah will come and tell us that Moshiach is coming. Here is not a car for Elijah, a chair for Elijah. Why a chair? Because Elijah was a prophet. He lived during the time when there was a kingdom of Israel and a kingdom of Judah, when Israel was divided into two kingdoms. And the kingdom of Israel was a very evil kingdom. They were worshipping idols, and they were not observing the mitzvah of Brit Milah. And because of that, Elijah was angry, and he made a statement, he made a decree that it should be a drought in Israel for 3 years because of this. It was a whole story. It's a long story. We're not going to the whole story. And it was a drought in Israel. And God was not happy with it. And after the drought, Elijah, the king, wanted to kill him. The king was a Jewish king who was an evil king. Ahab was his name, Achov. And he wanted to kill Elijah. And Elijah ran away from Mount Carmel after he proved everybody that he is speaking in the name of God. It's a whole story in its own. We'll not go there because it's a whole class in its own. He ran away he walked for 40 days. 40 days. Remind you, who was there for 40? Where was Moses for 40 days? Elijah made it all the way to Mount Sinai. And he entered the same cave that Moses entered. And then he hears a voice from God that says, Ma lecha po Eliyahu. What are you doing here, Elijah? Elijah was angry, and he says to God, what do you mean what I'm doing here? You people are idol worshipping, and idol worshippers, and they had forsaken the covenant. They don't do anymore the mitzvah of Brit Milah, and they kill the prophets, and they want to kill me too. Fine. Suddenly he hears noise, and then he walks out of his cave and stands by the entrance to the cave. And there is a strong wind and a fire and this, and then he hears the voice of God, the same question: Ma lecha po Eliyahu? What do you want, Elijah? When Elijah is asking the same question twice, obviously not because he didn't. When God is asking the same question twice, obviously it's not because he didn't hear well. Human being says, because he dreamed, because he looked on the iPhone, because he did many things, but because people are distracted. But obviously God wanted to hear a better answer. But Elijah gave the same answer. He repeated the same thing: you children are worshipping idols and they've forsaken the covenant of the Bris. And God told them, go and look for a man with the name Elisha ben Shaphat, the son of Shaphat, and appoint him to be a prophet instead of you. Basically, you are fired. Because if you say bad things about my people, you cannot be a prophet. A prophet's job is, a leader's job is, a prophet's job is, a rabbi's job is to defend the Jewish people. God says to hear the bad news, you can turn on the 6 o'clock news, you can hear all the bad things about everybody. The job of the prophet, of the leader, is to find the good in the people and bring out the good. Because Kabbalah tells us even more, when you speak good about another person, you bring out the best of him. You speak bad, even if he doesn't hear it. Just talking about the bad of others brings the bad out of him. Talking good about others brings the good out of him. And God told, and actually, what means to be fired by God? Nobody wants to be fired by God. Because if you're fired by God, you're not retiring to Florida. You're retiring to somewhere else.
Alaska.
You're becoming a messenger to heaven.
You get a new assignment.
You get an assignment. Then since then, it's written in Kabbalah, it's written in the Zohar, that Elijah, his soul, comes to every Bris to testify that the Jewish people observe the Bris. God said, you speak Lashon Hara, you speak evil about my kids, and you make out stories that they don't observe the Bris, you will be attending every Bris that will ever exist of the Jewish people. And therefore we prepare a chair for Elijah, because we know he's coming to visit in the Bris. And when Elijah is there, it's a good time to make a connection to God, a big important person. That we place the baby, we honor somebody to place the baby on the chair of Elijah. And then we recite these lines. The Moel recites this. Let's read it.
This is the seed of Elijah. May he be remembered for good. For your deliverance I hope, O Lord. I have hoped for your deliverance, Lord. and I perform your commandments.
It's like a prayer of the Moel that is asking Hashem should be on his side while he's making the bris. Go ahead.
Elijah, angel of the covenant, here is yours before you. Stand at my right and support me. I rejoice in your word, like one who finds great spoil. Those who love your Torah have abounding peace, and there is no stumbling for them. Happy is the man you choose and bring near to dwell in your courtyards. We will be satiated with the goodness of your house, your holy temple.
After the Moel finishes this prayer and he's asking from Elijah to be on his side to help him to that the bris will work out well, now you pick the baby up from the chair of Elijah, and you hand them over to the father of the baby. Why the father of the baby? Because really, the mitzvah of the bris is an obligation of the father. He has to circumcise his son. It's an obligation of every father to circumcise his son. If he didn't do it, then the son is an adult. After bar mitzvah, its obligation is on him to do it. But while he's a baby, the obligation is on the father. Now, because the father is not every father is a moel, then the father is appointing the moel to be his agent to make the bris. He's actually they hand him the knife, and he's handing the knife to the moel to tell him he should be his agent to make the bris. When it's possible, sometimes they just do it because it's clearly it makes him the messenger. And then comes the most important part about the bris, the sandik. What's a sandik? Sandik is the person who is holding the baby while there is a bris. The person who is holding the baby is like an altar, and he's holding the baby while the bris is taking place. Now, it's written in Jewish tradition that being a sandik is an amazing merit in mitzvah. It's written that anybody who is basandik becomes rich. It's a zgula to become rich. But usually the rich people say that if you give them the sandik, they'll pay for the whole bris. Then I don't know what comes first. You become rich and then you become a sandik. But then therefore people are very eager to be sandiks. Now there is another tradition that the same person is not a sandik at the same family twice. Let's say you have two boys, you don't give to be the same person to be a sandik. You give it to somebody else. Why? Because sandik is compared to offering incense in the temple. He used to offer every morning incense in the temple. And the custom was there also, when you used to offer incense in the temple, the person offered incense, the Kohen who offered incense used to get a blessing to become rich and things like this. Was a good blessing. Then the custom was that there was never the same person offering incense twice. Every morning was a raffle, but in this raffle were only participating those who never had a chance. If you had a chance, you never did it again. The same thing, because being a sandik is like offering incense in the temple, they apply the same rules here. That if you're a sandik once, by this family, it can be the no family, by this family you are once and not more than once. But if it's a holy man, a very righteous man, then it's a benefit for the baby that he will be the sandik. In this case, you give him to be a sandik more than once. You can give him more than once. Then a great Rebbe or sandik takes sandiks more than once by the same family. Actually, it's written that the sandik has an effect on the baby, spiritually. Then depends who is your sandik, that's how the baby will come out. Therefore, you pursue for a sandik who is a righteous man or a holy man, because it has an effect on the child. How is it going to be?
Isn't there also a connection of sandik to the grandfather?
What do you mean to the grandfather?
We learned last night that the grandchild of Jacob, he was on his lap when they do this.
That's Joseph.
Or
that's
Joseph.
That's what happened. But it does. Usually, you give it to a grandfather. But but it's even. The point is the sandik. Whoever the sandik is a person that affects the baby, and that's why you usually pursue. You look for somebody who is a more spiritual person who can affect the baby in a good way. And now comes the act itself.
Quick question.
Go ahead,
Is there a
please.
reason why Elijah is called the angel of the covenant?
Because of this. Because he was Because he shows up by a bris, I think. That's why it's called Malach HaBris.
Is there a reason why they use the term malach, angel, messenger?
Why they call him angel?
Uh-huh.
Because Elijah did not die a normal death. Elijah went up by flames to heaven. The only person ever who didn't die a normal death, that his body was not buried, is Elijah. Elijah disappeared, basically, and was left is his cot. His disciple was with him. Elisha, the disciple that God told him to appoint him next to him, was with him. Elijah tried to get rid of him before he disappears. He shouldn't see it, but Elisha didn't let him go. He was holding on to him, and because of that, he actually saw it. And he came with his coat. People didn't believe. Elijah disappeared. He's going to come back. The disciples of Elijah went to look for him. They looked and looked and looked. They couldn't find him. He's gone. The idea is that Elijah went up alive to heaven, and he became an angel. And as an angel, he comes to every place. And as I mentioned before, Elijah is the reincarnation of Pinchas. And Pinchas was a zealot man, right? Elijah was a zealot man. And the job of Elijah is to bring us the best news. Actually, he has to have a change of personality, to see the good in every Jew, and to see the not to be zealous, to be protective and defending for the Jewish people.
Was that a punishment for him, though? Or
Not a
that
punishment,
he
but
has to
just the
show up
opposite.
to all these things? It's
Just the
like a-
opposite. Yeah, not a punishment, obviously, but it's like an atonement, if you want.
It's an
A
opportunity.
tikkun,
Because why?
because he complained that the Jewish people have forsaken the bris. That's why he has to come to every bris and make a statement. By him being there, that look, testifying, his job is to testify that the Jewish people observe the mitzvah bris.
It's a
It's
proof.
to prove him wrong.
Yeah.
He has to look and watch.
It's not to prove him wrong.
It's-
A
it's-
tikkun means, an atonement means that you do the opposite. You yourself come and you support the bris. What he's doing here, Elijah is not just testifying, he's bringing a blessing when he comes.
So Hashem wasn't mad at him that he said that about the Jewish people?
Hashem was mad of whatever mad means, but he was, and therefore he told them, he gave him the opportunity to correct it by helping Jewish people observing the mitzvah of bris. Elijah is protecting the baby, protecting the moel. That's why the moel is asking Elijah to protect and stay on my right to protect me.
Rabbi, is there any connection between him going to the bris and him being the one to bring the news about Moshiach?
Is there any connection between the
That he has
bris?
to show up at all the Brits and then also tell us about Moshiach coming?
I'm sure there is could be the connection is that the bris is one of the greatest mitzvahs that because of them we will deserve the final redemption. Think about that. What happened in the first redemption? We're going to say it soon. When the Jewish people left Egypt, the Satan told God, why are you redeeming them? They don't deserve it. More than that, when the angel of death came out to Egypt and he was killing the firstborn, right? What did Jews had to do to survive it? Not to be killed. The firstborn of the Jews shouldn't be killed. What they had to do?
Put blood on
Lamb's
it.
blood.
They had to put the blood of the lamb on the doorpost. And what else? They slaughtered the lamb and they had to eat it. It was a sacrifice. To be allowed to eat from a sacrificial meat, you must be circumcised. A Jew is not circumcised, cannot eat from the sacrificial meat. And God says right there by the story of the Exodus that nobody is allowed to eat it if it's not circumcised. And the Jews in Egypt, most of them did not practice the mitzvah of the bris. Even it was there already during Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, Joseph. The tribe of the Levites were observing the mitzvah of the bris, but most of the Jews did not observe the mitzvah of the bris. Came Passover lamb, and the Medrash describes that the smell was unbelievable. And the Jewish boys said, we want a piece. And Moses told them, circumcision please. Thousands and thousands of Jews were circumcised on that night. And when it's written that because of two mitzvahs, that the Jewish people came out from Egypt, because the mitzvah of circumcision and the mitzvah of the slaughtering the lamb. Then again, the first redemption was because of the mitzvah of Brit, of circumcision. the final redemption will also come because of the mitzvah of circumcision. That's a connection. Elijah, because of his attending all the circumcisions, he will be able to come and tell us that Moshiach is coming. We will deserve the final redemption. And as we'll see it later, we'll talk about it actually. And now comes, they put the baby, the father puts the baby on the sandik's lap. It's not like somebody else. He should put the baby. He, with his full consent, he puts the baby on the sandik's lap. Or he can be the sandik himself if he wants to. And then the Moel says the blessing, ala milah, because it's a mitzvah, asher kiddushanu tzatav v'tzvanu, the first mitzvah, ala milah. And then the father of the baby will say another blessing. Mark, you want to read the other blessing? Blessed are you.
Sure. Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who has sanctified us with his commandments and commanded us to enter into the covenant of Abraham, our father.
We call it the covenant of Abraham, our father. And that's a blessing that the father says, that he finally fulfilled the mitzvah of bringing his son, entering his son into the covenant of Abraham. Anybody who is present at this event is making an announcement, the last 2 lines of the page. Martel, you want to read?
Amen. Just as he has entered into the covenant, so may he enter into Torah, into marriage, and into the deed.
That we wish the baby as he entered into the covenant. That was the beginning. You know, by the Bris is the beginning of the entrance of the godly soul into the baby. The animal soul is by the baby from the day he's born, even during pregnancy. The godly soul is the newcomer type of thing. Every child wants to cry and wants to eat. To pray, he doesn't want when he's 3 days old. You know what I mean? The godly soul is entering the neshama by the age of 8 days. That's the beginning of his entrance. His completion of the entrance is by the bar mitzvah. Therefore, from 8 days old is the beginning. 8 days is the beginning of a Jewish education, if you want. That's the first introduction to Hebrew school. It's by 8 days old. And then it goes all the way until the bar mitzvah. By the bar mitzvah, the neshama is completed, and therefore is obligated to mitzvahs. Until the bar mitzvah is not obligated to mitzvahs. Children are not obligated to do mitzvahs. The parents have an obligation to educate them. They should know how to do it after the bar mitzvah. But the child himself is not obligated to do mitzvahs. It's strange, in America, Judaism became a religion for children. As long as my children were home, we were lighting the menorah. As long as my children were home, we were doing a seder. We were celebrating Purim. Judaism is a religion for adults. We are educating the children how to do it today on their own when they're adults. Then we wish him, as he entered the covenant, that's the first thing. Then we educate him for Torah. From now it's time to educate him for Torah. Until chuppah, until he gets married. And after he gets married, then we'll be busy more with good deeds. Before that, we want him to be busy more with Torah than with good deeds. You know, when he's in yeshiva, he shouldn't run around and do mitzvahs. He should be studying. He shouldn't say, oh, I'm so busy, we have to hope this person is in a hospital and the other person is this. That's everyone, everything has its place and its time. During your time of learning, you have to learn. That's why the order is Torah, marriage, then you start to do good deeds. Doesn't mean you should do bad deeds before that, but you should do... That's the ceremony of the bris itself is over. Now,
is this a special Jewish soul that enters at 8 days that Gentiles don't get?
Yes. A holier soul that the Jews possess, and that's why they're obligated to so many mitzvahs. Yes. They have a soul too, and they are obligated to their mitzvahs, the 7 Nochite laws. But the Jewish soul is obligated to 613 commandments. That's why he needs an extra push, if you want, to do so many mitzvahs. It's not easy. Think about the word brit. How much is brit? To make it easier, you know, the word brit is not here. How much is brit?
6:15.
No.
6:20.
How much is brit?
I don't know, because I'd have to know those letters.
Taf,
Tough
Reish,
248. I'm guessing.
Yud, Bet.
Yud is 10.
Taf, Reish,
Half is a
Yud,
lot.
Bet.
Yod is 10.
Bet is 2. Tough, I think, is
400.
400.
Reish is 200. 612.
12.
612.
And then the 2 more.
The bris is the
13.
The moment you do a bris, that's the entrance, that's the gate to the other 612 mitzvahs.
Forgot that.
Brit is 612. You start with a bris, and then you continue to the rest of the 612. That's the Torah, Chuppah and Gudit. That's all mitzvahs. It's all a bunch of, it's all to do mitzvahs. How you start? You start with the first mitzvah. Before the 200 and 612, number 1, then there is another 612 mitzvahs. These numbers, like Baruch Haba, that all shows us how it's all interconnected, how all, it makes sense on every level.
Why in the bris, which the brit, which means covenant and cutting, why is the circumcision?
Brit
applied?
means covenant, not
Okay,
cutting.
exactly,
actually.
but milah means
Milah
cutting.
means cutting.
But we don't know what we're supposed to cut. I mean, we know what we do in the ceremony, but why is that picked as opposed to something else?
Okay, it's on video. The question is, it's written in the Torah, God told Abraham to circumcise his foreskin.
I thought it was, he said just
Circumcised,
to bleed.
The bleed, you can bleed from the nose.
I know, that's what he's asking. Why do they pick the foreskin?
Yeah, you can cut off the lobe of the ear. You can do something else.
No, you tell me, guys. Because it's written in the Torah, circumcise every male. A place where there is a male different than a female. A male, it's a male place. That's number 1. But more than that, it's to control the male. That's what it's all about. It's to tell him to direct his spirit, to direct his desires to God and not to only physical things. And that's called Ot Brit Kodesh, a holy sign of the Jewish people. In the place that's the focus of a human being is so strong on it, is right there to tell him that his focus should be on spirituality. That's what it's all about. That's what Bris. Exactly for this reason.
That makes sense.
And that's why male need it. Female do not have this strong desires for physical and worldly things. Male needed to be controlled. Male need the covenant with God. And the covenant is the most painful place if you want. The idea is to remind you that the focus should not be on physical things, but on spiritual things. And it helps. That's what they say, that people are circumcised. It's easier for them to be spiritual, let's put it this way, than people who do not have a circumcision. That's why it's there. But God wanted a sign on the body. That's, in another sense, why God wanted a covenant on you that you cannot run away from it. It's not an additional thing to you. It's a part of you. It's a scratch of you that cannot be erased, so to speak. Instead of doing tattoos, that today everybody is tattooing himself. That's the original thing. You do this and you are connected to God. But clearly, it was made to control the animal soul of the male. Absolutely, that's the reason. Now we'll go to page 459. The second part of the bris. After we did the circumcision, now that he is Jewish, we give him a Jewish name. Now
So
we
he
can
really
talk to him.
wasn't Jewish up until then?
No. He was Jewish even if he's not circumcised. But now that he entered the covenant of the Jewish people, we give him a Jewish
He's
name.
done his first mitzvah.
Exactly, beautiful. He's done the first mitzvah. Now now he has another 612 to go, but now he entered the club, and now we give him a Jewish name. Then how is this? The order is happening. You fill up a cup of wine, like in every special Jewish occasion, you make a prayer over a cup of wine. There is also a tradition by a priest to light candles. It's not practiced in many priests, but it's in Jewish law. It's written in Jewish law. I
What
saw a
about on
Moya.
Shabbat? And you'll do that on Shabbat?
No, on Shabbat you cannot do it.
Oh, okay.
You cannot do it. You cannot do it. But
I didn't know how far you took it,
no, a bris. It's interesting. A bris.
but you can cut.
Yeah. Oh, usually you're not allowed to do such a cut on Shabbat.
No.
But because a bris overrides the mitzvah of Shabbat. Only if it's by the 8th day. Let's say the baby was jaundice, and you couldn't make it the 8th day, you're not allowed to make the bris on Shabbat anymore. If it's not the 8th day, you cannot do it on Shabbat. If the baby was born in a C-section, you cannot do it on Shabbat, the bris. You have to push this off to Sunday. Only if it was a natural birth, and it's the 8th day, then you do it on Shabbat. Even on Yom Kippur, you make a bris on Yom Kippur. You don't eat and you don't drink, but you made the bris.
Save you a lot of
You're not
money.
gonna do the wine during the bris.
What, on Yom
On
Kippur?
Yom Kippur, you wouldn't.
No, you don't. It's a very complicated business on Yom
Yeah.
Kippur to do a bris, but you do it. You do a bris on Yom Kippur. And
On Shabbos, what else don't you do besides light candles?
you
can do
the
everything
bris is the
else.
bris. I mean, you have to prepare everything from before Shabbat in the same place.
Because you can't carry the.
You cannot carry all the instrument. Everything has to be. But whatever needs to be done for the bris, you're allowed to do on Shabbat.
Okay.
Yes, absolutely. That's overriding the mitzvah of Shabbos. And saving life overrides the mitzvah of a bris. That if the baby is not 100% complete healthy, you push off the bris because the baby is more important than life is more important. And interesting enough, the moyals are more strict than the doctors. Even when the doctors say that you can make the bris already, the moyals will not do it. They will go and they will wait much longer to make sure that the baby is 100% well. Then they do the bris. They go much extra. I was speaking to the moyal actually, and he told me, okay, he asked me all the question, is he jaundice? You know how much? And he tells me, okay, after the doctor will see him, you call me, and I will hear how much, and I will decide if it's good according to my criteria or not.
So the moil has to come stay by you?
The moil will stay by me, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he will stay, he will be here all Shabbos, he's coming for Shabbos, and he will do the priest, yeah, God willing. Then now we pour a cup of wine, and we recite first the first blessing, Borei Pri Hagafen, then continue with the next blessing.
Blessed are you, Lord our God, King of the universe, who sanctified the beloved one from the womb, set his statute in his flesh, and sealed his descendants with the sign of the Holy Covenant. Therefore, as a reward of this circumcision, the living God, our portion, our rock, has ordained that the beloved of our flesh be saved from the abyss, for the sake of the covenant which he has set in our flesh. Blessed are you, Lord, who makes the covenant.
That God made a sign, or Ot Brit Kodesh, a sign in the flesh, only sign in the covenant in the flesh of the human being. Then this we thank God for making making a covenant with the Jewish people, making a bris. Now comes really the blessing, the prayer for the naming. What do you want to say?
Well, question. I guess you could do some type of a symbol for women as well. Why did God?
Why
only choose a
women do
symbol?
not have a bris? That's a good question.
I've been wondering it all along.
Then you know the in some
We're
Arab
closer
countries.
to God
Yeah.
already?
Yes.
They do.
Some
Yeah.
African countries.
Because we're
But-
closer to God.
But what is a covenant? When you make a covenant,
Gotta make a promise.
you ever made a covenant with your child that you love him and he will love you? Never. Who makes a covenant? Two strangers get married, they make a covenant. They will love each other forever and ever. Why do you need a covenant? Because now they're in love. But one day the love will fly out of the window. And then if there is no commitment, if there is no covenant, you'll not survive each other. The commitment is the covenant. Two strangers need to make a covenant to love each other, or any covenant you read in the Bible between strangers. Parents and children, it's a natural love. No need for covenant. That's the difference between men relationship in God and woman relationships with God. A woman has a natural love to God, connection with God. Women are more spiritual. That's why in every Jewish event almost, there is more women than men. Women are more, the driving force of most Jewish homes are the women, in most of the cases. Most of the people in our synagogue came because of the women, usually. Not always, but 90%, I would say 95%. It's always the women, because women naturally connect to God. They don't need a covenant, they don't need a reminder, they don't need a binding. Men are like strangers with God. They need a covenant to make with God. The Talmud says, Isho keman de me'ile damye. A woman is like, she's circumcised already. She's coming ready. She has already a covenant with God. She doesn't need a covenant with God. Think about the Exodus from Egypt. The Jewish men, we are going to read next week, is Parshat Shmot. The Jewish men gave up on having children. They said we should be slaves, they should be thrown into the river. Who needs it? The women wanted to have children. They continued that faith that one day God will save the Jewish people. And if not for the women, there wouldn't be anybody to redeem from Egypt. There would be nobody there. That's why the Talmud says, because of the merit of the Jewish women, the Jewish people came out from Egypt. Simply, there was nobody there to go out from Egypt if not to the Jewish woman. And if you look at every story, Purim, it's because of Esther. And Hanukkah is because of Judith. And Rachel was, we read this week Parsha, Rachel's stay was not buried in the cave of Machpelah because she prayed for her children, they should be returning from exile. Everywhere you touch in Jewish tradition, the women always had the feeling, the correct feeling. The men gave money for the golden calf, and the women gave money for building the temple. The men died in the desert, the women entered the land of Israel. Everywhere throughout Jewish history, in every story, the women were always on the right side and the men were always in the wrong side. Because it's not natural for them. They have to work on it. It's a marriage. It's a marriage with God. The male of the Jewish people are the female of God.
Mm-hmm.
You understand? That for men and God, it's like a husband and wife. For women and God, it's like a child and a parent. If you want to divide between these two relationships. Even that sometimes we call our God Avinu, our Father, our King. Sometimes we say the Jewish people are married to God. If you divide it in all women and men are married to God, women are the children of God. And the children are connected to the parents naturally. We are a marriage, you constantly have to work on that. That's why it starts with the Bris, and that's why men have more mitzvahs, why men put on film. Because men have to every day be reminded that the heart, that film you put against your heart, and you put it on top of your head, on top of your brain, that your heart and your mind should always be submissive to God. Should only do and think, feel, have desires, and do with your hand. That's why you put it on your hand. Thoughts, feelings, and action should be only what God wants. Who needs it? A man. That's why men put on film. Women do not need a daily reminder. For this reason, the men have so many more mitzvahs. Everybody screams, "Oh, why women don't have?" The women do not need the mitzvahs. They are naturally connected. Who needs a mitzvah? Is a reminder, constantly to be reminded. Oh, again God, and again a reminder. Because why men wear a kippah? Women don't wear kippahs. Because a man thinks he's God. That you have to remind them there is something on his head. There is somebody above you. Don't think you're God. Female, don't think that they are God. They know. They're the kings, then I don't have to be God. And that's why women, it's good that you ask the question, that's why women do not need a bris and men have a bris. Because men need the covenant with God. Now we'll go to the prayer for the baby naming.
Our God and God of our fathers, preserve this child, for his father and mother and his name in Israel shall be called.
Now you announce the name. The first time everybody knows the name. The father or the mother will whisper to the person who says the blessing, what is the name? Yeah.
The son of blah, blah, blah.
Mm-hmm.
May the father rejoice in his offspring, and his mother be glad with the fruit of her womb, as it is written. May your father and mother rejoice, and she who bore you be glad. And it is said, I passed by you and saw you were weltering in your blood.
Wallowing in your blood.
I can't see.
Weltering, you're right.
Weltering in your blood, and I said
Right.
to you, you shall live through your
Sorry.
blood, and I said to you, you shall live through your blood.
Let's stop right here. This is a quote from the book of Ezekiel. The prophet Ezekiel says in the name of God, I passed by and I saw you weltering in your blood. What is weltering in your blood? What is wallowing in your blood?
Swimming in blood?
Swimming in your blood, like. And I said, by blood you should live. By blood you should live. What means by blood you should live? This will give you life. The blood usually, if a person says blood, he dies, right? I mean, it means he's dead. Which is God is described. The prophet Ezekiel described that God passed by in Egypt when he was killing the firstborn son, and he saw the Jewish people wallowing in the bloods, in the two bloods, the blood of the Passover lamb and the blood of the circumcision. And that's why he says it twice. By your blood you should live. This blood gives life. They're not asking from anybody to give his life, to sacrifice his life, and to die for God. This blood gives life. After the bris, you live long, and God will give you big blessings.
Why in Genesis do we hear nothing about blood until we get to Ezekiel?
We read about the blood of the Passover lamb.
Passover lamb, yes, but not circumcision.
And circumcision is written. It's written right there that anybody who is not circumcised cannot be a part of the cannot eat from the sacrifice. You understand?
But I guess you could take off the foreskin without any blood.
Really?
Well,
I never met this guy.
Well, isn't that why there is the ceremony for the moil to actually draw blood?
If what? When is the and if not? You can take off the circumcision. You can do a circumcision without blood, you say?
It can be done. Don't they have a problem in some of the circumcisions not getting blood, so they either prick it or they use another ceremony to
No. That's
draw
like
it?
if they get
That's
if they re-circumcise because they have to convert as an adult.
Yes.
That's already
yes.
a
Oh no,
circumcised.
well no, but there is
Yeah.
the whole thing with the peeling back and then at the end you suck. You know, I mean,
Okay, but I don't think it would be a circumcision without blood.
That's a different thing, and it has to do with bringing down kedusha.
Yeah, the idea is why blood. God wants to give a little. You should give a little of your blood. It should be a real thing. You sacrifice something.
It's a very
That
bad
God
choice,
forbid
yeah.
you shouldn't. God forbid nobody should die, but a little bit of your blood should be for God. You fulfill this great mitzvah with a drop of blood. Don't have to be a lot, just a drop of blood. But in the same idea, if a baby, let's say a baby was born circumcised, then you have to take out a little bit of blood because that has to be blood. You're right. Or somebody has to convert, you have to take out a little blood. But the idea is to take off the foreskin and to get out a little blood. Yes. Why?
Again,
Because-
blood is the symbol of life here.
yeah, but your blood you should live. What's blood? Body is life. You have add blood means you're alive. God forbid somebody is called blood. Says, and that's it. The blood is the symbol of life or not life. That's why the first plague of the 10 plagues in Egypt were blood. It's life.
It makes sense. It makes sense also because that's when the neshama comes in, the godly neshama, and that's the level of nefesh. No, maybe.
That's
no.
too complicated for me. I mean,
It's
go,
a
good
Kabbalah
for you.
class.
It's Kabbalah, but I'm not. I'm a simple Jew, you know.
Oh yeah, right.
No, I mean, I really don't know exactly which level it goes. Nefesh, ruach, blood is nefesh. You're right. Blood is the nefesh of the person. The life, the source of life. Blood is also for animals, also for fish. Everybody has blood. Blood is the nefesh of that person. But the idea is that God wants you should spill a little blood, to so to speak, sacrifice a little bit of yourself. The blood should be directed. The message is the blood should be directed. Blood is a big, hot-blooded person. Your excitement should be in spirituality. Then we cut the bris. The bris is right in this place, and we tell, and this is a message for the person that his excitement should be directed to spirituality. That's what it's all about. Ve'ne'emar, continue.
And it is said, He has remembered His covenant forever, the word which He has commanded to 1,000 generations, the covenant which He made with Abraham and His oath to Isaac. He established it for Jacob as a statute, for Israel as an everlasting covenant. And it is said, Abraham circumcised his son Isaac when he was 8 days old, as God had commanded him. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good, for His kindness is everlasting. Give thanks to the Lord, for He is good, for His kindness is everlasting. May this little infant become great. Just as he has entered the covenant, so may he enter into Torah, into marriage, and into good deeds.
First of all, we give him a blessing. First of all, we mentioned that Abraham circumcised his son when he was 8 days old, the first Jewish baby that was circumcised 8 days. It's unbelievable. This mitzvah is for 4,000 years. Jewish people observe the mitzvah of Brit Milah for 4,000 years.
What's it mean when he says 1,000 generations? Isn't that more than what we
1,000
have now?
generations, it's the longest time. Yeah, it means to say forever.
Oh, forever.
And then we give him a blessing. Ze katan gadol yeh. This little one should be grown up to be a big man. Not a big physically necessarily, but a big man spiritually. Should be a great person. Ze katan gadol yeh. And it became almost an expression in Hebrew. This little one, he's just a little boy. Don't worry, this little one will grow up to be a great man. And then we give him again the blessing. As he entered the covenant, so to he be entered to Torah, to Chuppah, and the good deeds. Now is the time you drink the wine. The person who said the prayers is drinking the wine, and then the moel says a prayer like a mishaberach, later he says a mishaberach. It's a prayer that God should protect and together with the father they say this prayer. Let's read this prayer. It's a very powerful prayer.
Sovereign of the universe, may it be your will that this circumcision be regarded and accepted by you, and if I had offered him before the throne of your glory, and you, in your abounding mercy, sent through your holy angels a holy and pure soul to father my son, Moel, the son of father name,
who
was now been circumcised for the sake of your great name. May his heart be open to the portal of the Ulam of the temple in your holy Torah, to learn and to teach, to observe and to practice. Grant him long life, a life imbued with the fear of sin, a life of wealth and honor, and fulfill the desires of his heart and good. Amen.
Okay, what he says is like this. First of all, he starts with a prayer, may it be considered like I offer them as a sacrifice. And then he says, in your great mercy, send them through your angels. A holy soul. Now is the time for the holy soul to come in, that we're asking from Hashem to send the baby a holy soul, who was just circumcised. And his heart should be open to the Torah, like the doors, the entrance of the temple in Jerusalem, the entrance of the temple was huge, was the biggest entrance at that time. Then we say, may his heart will be welcoming Torah. It means to say, some children you learn, and they are in tune to spirituality, and some children that look at you like, huh? Nothing goes in. Then we are praying that's a part of the reason of the circumcision is to open his heart for the Torah. It should clap to him. It should be attached to him. Spirituality should speak to him. He shouldn't look on a synagogue and say, "What is this?" He should get excited about spiritual things. And you see it. You see some children they are born with this connection, and others it's much harder. That's what we ask him. And may he learn and teach, practice and do all the mitzvahs, and give him long life. What type of a life? Long days and lives and years. What type of a life? Chaim sheliras chet, Chaim, a life of a fear of heaven, fear of sin. Then we ask for money, for wealth, and for honor, and all his desires should be answered. Wishes should be answered. But first you want him to be a God-fearing man, then he should have money, then he should have honor. By the way, obviously, money is more important than honor. Yes, if this is written before, if you have money, you have already honor too. They will honor you. Then it goes fear of heaven, then the spiritual thing, then physical thing. And we say, may it be your will. That's the prayer that the moel and the father of the baby, both of them are saying, right after the bris. And now we make a mishaberach. You want to read the mishaberach, please? The moel continues.
May he who blessed our fathers Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Moses, and Aaron, David, and Solomon, bless this tender infant, the son of whoever it is.
Because
they pledged charity for his sake for Bikur Cholim.
For Bikur Cholim. Know what Bikur Cholim is?
Yeah.
What is Bikur Cholim? Go ahead. What's Bikur Cholim?
Well, I know there's an organization that helps the people that are needy and stuff.
Bikur Cholim is an organization that helps the sick. Cholim means sick. Bikur Cholim means visiting the sick.
Mm-hmm.
There was in every Jewish community throughout history was a society, a Bikur Cholim society, who fundraise and they help families who are in a sick crisis. Somebody is sick in the family. By helping them, visiting them. Bikur means to visit the sick. For example, Bikur Cholim in Cleveland has in University Hospital a room that is kosher food, that if somebody is stuck there for Shabbos, like my son-in-law, he can go there, and there is kosher food, there is everything there. There is challah and there is wine, and there is even electric candles for lighting candles Friday night. Everything is there. Especially for people who are in hospital. That's what Bikur Cholim is. Now we are asking from God to cure this baby. Are you curing the baby? I tell God, God, I will donate for Bikur Cholim, for others sick, and in turn you will cure my baby. That's what the prayer is all about.
Can you do that on Shabbos?
You make the promise you make on Shabbos.
You can
Obviously,
make
you don't.
the-
Yeah,
you-
sure.
I mean,
For
the-
community needs, you can make a fundraiser on Shabbos. Absolutely. Personal business, you're not allowed to talk on Shabbos.
Right, yeah.
But community need, it's a mitzvah to talk on Shabbos. Huh? Money on Shabbos for community needs, absolutely. In many synagogues, they auction out the aliyahs on Shabbos. How they do it? They're allowed to do it. Because everybody comes only on Shabbos. I'm sorry, you could continue.
In this merit, may the Holy One, blessed be He, be hastened to send a complete recovery to all of his 248 bodily parts. Interesting. 365 veins. Oh, that's so cool. And raise him to Torah, to marriage, and to good deeds.
And let us say amen. Ah?
Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, that's according to Judaism, a man has 248 bodily parts, organs, whatever you call it, and 365 veins. It means to say the body of the human being was created according to the Torah. According to how many mitzvahs there are. There is a mitzvah for every part of you. And if you would know which mitzvah corresponds to which part of your body and you would fix the mitzvah, you would be cured. The only problem is you don't know what is for what. That's the only small problem.
It's not on the internet.
You know.
Mazel tov.
So wait, the redemption of the firstborn.